joining in from Tanzania. So people from really all over the world, from the UAE, Singapore. So happy to see you all here. And as the number of participants is kind of stabilizing, I'm going to hand the floor over to Ayomide, who will be moderating this forum.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this open forum. We are very excited to kick off this conversation about women in STEM. And so just to introduce myself, my name is Ayomide Ajikaye, and I live in St. Louis, Missouri in the US. And I've been part of Amin Impact for now 3-ish years. And one of my favorite SDGs is SDG 4, but I'm very excited to have a conversation about SDG 5 as well. So today I will first be giving you some more information about our panelists. And panelists, feel free to add on to anything that I say about you when I'm explaining your backstory, I guess. And then right after that, we'll go into the conversation aspect of this. So first off, I will start with Miss Barnell, who is a co-founder and chief science officer of Genioscopy, which is a clinical stage diagnostic company which works on early detection of colorectal cancer, which is very amazing. And its technology analyzes RNA and stool samples to look for early warning signs of cancer, provides non-invasive alternatives to colonoscopies, and to date, Genioscopy has over $15 million in venture backing funding. She has an MD and PhD from the Washington University School of Medicine, with a PhD particularly in molecular genetics and genomics. And her aspirations include utilizing advancing translational medicine and she has a specific focus on oncology, and she has strengths in DNA and RNA sequencing techniques, employing bioinformatic approaches to analyze large genomic data and genomic data visualization. Ms. Barnell, do you have anything else you want to add to your backstory, I guess?
Gosh, that was a very lovely introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And then Miss Jaira is the Manila chapter president of YTech, and she joined YTech in 2018 as part of the human resources team, and is a participant relations head to connect as a participant relations head to connect with young women to be STEM mentors and peers. She is an alumnus of the Philippine Science High School, where she focused on biology, chemistry, and engineering, and she is a strong advocate for women's rights, environmental action, and is working towards using science and technology to bridge sustainable solutions to communities. Acknowledging her privilege to attend PISA, she hopes to share her knowledge and put more people into their own STEM journey, and putting her passion for technology and problem solving to good use. She often joins hackathons and helps brainstorm solutions on pressing issues, where she helps mentor for NASA's Space Apps challenges, or helps coach for annual Climathon PASIGs, where she assisted teams in ideating, developing, and presenting projects. And when she's not and so she's a very interesting person. And Jaira, if you want to go and explain more about yourself. I love all the things you've done so far. Yes.
Right now I'm actually an undergraduate student for BS Agricultural and Biosystems Engineering. So yeah, that's all that I'm doing. And actually I really like monitoring, as you said, on the Climathon and NASA Space Apps, because it really brings together people with the same agenda, but with bringing different ideas on the table. So yes, thank you for that introduction.
Thank you for being here. And then finally, Miss Aurora is an exemplary leader in exploring science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which is STEM, to improve her community and inspire many of her fellow students. She has many accolades in the Nanyang Technology Institute, including contributing to the IEEE NTU student branch as the technical director in the 2019 and 2020 school year. She is at Women in Tech at the NTU as the events director, and she has mentored over 50 schoolgirls to increase their interest in areas of STEM through the Girl Code community. She currently chairs the Women in Tech at NTU Club, where she leads events and projects to inspire and encourage female students towards a career in STEM. Miss Aurora hopes to further her passion in STEM and make contributions that benefit the society. So thank you again, Miss Aurora, for being here. Is there any other things you want to add to your introduction?
No, thank you so much for inviting me and also for that wonderful introduction.
Thank you so much for being here. So first off, we'll go into our first question, which this kind of goes into the root of like this problem we have with, I guess, women in STEM and kind of the inequality faced there. So the first question is, what is the biggest reason that you think women don't go into STEM positions as often as men, and how can we encourage girls to be brave and not stay in comfortable positions? So Miss Aurora, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I feel that the environment in which girls grow up plays a very important role. So if you have like supportive parents, supportive teachers who tell you that you can achieve a lot and that you are no less than boys, then of course you would go ahead and try to prove them right. However, if you are not so privileged and your environment has some superstitions which pull you down, then I feel that would negatively affect your interests in STEM.
Yes, I completely agree. I think that is very true. And Miss Jaira, do you want to go and contribute? Yes.
So actually, I think the biggest reason for women not going into STEM positions is actually the social norm that only men goes to STEM. So this thought process goes way back to childhood, where boy toys are geared towards professional work, while the girl toys are usually a cute version of household chores. So this social norm also translates to the parents who does not pay attention to their girls' education compared to the boys, since they expect these girls to actually just marry and for the men to work. So another factor in the social norm is the representation, where in the content the kids actually consume, most STEM professionals are really men. Thus, it gets embedded on their brains that women or girls have no space in STEM.
Thank you so much. And Miss Burnell?
Yeah, I actually didn't understand the biggest reason in my mind until I was much older, about 23 or 24, because, I was in an environment where everyone said, you can, you're a woman, doesn't matter, you can do anything. And, I believed that was true. And I was provided with all the opportunity and everything necessary to achieve the same thing that men do. But I came across this feminist comic called The Mental Load, and it describes how life admin activities disproportionately fall onto women, especially, once you become independent from your family unit. So, for example, when I'm living by myself, I have a house, I have a husband, I have a dog, hopefully children. That kind of life admin responsibility falls onto me. So in addition to a full day of work, women tend to be responsible for childcare. They tend to be responsible for house maintenance. They tend to be responsible for groceries, for making dinner, for finances, for just organizing the things that you have to do to have a life. And that's a full-time job in my mind. So to compensate, women tend to not enter careers or take on roles where they're stretched to accommodate 2 full-time jobs. For example, it'd be very difficult for me to be a surgeon where I'm working 18 hours a day and then come home to needing to get groceries, needing to do the laundry, needing to do the dishes, needing to make sure that my child is picked up from daycare and things like that. And so I think that mental load, that life admin burden that disproportionately affects women prevents women from going into careers in STEM.
Thank you so much for your answer, Dr. Brunel. I definitely agree with what you said, and especially like in COVID, you've seen a lot of women who've had to decide often now between kind of staying in their job or taking care of their families, and a lot have chosen to stay with their families. So that is a good point that you raised there. So our next question I will pose to Ms. Jaira. What was your inspiration for, I guess, going into the STEM field? Did you have any heroines? Generally, yeah, what made you go into STEM, and what is something you wish you had done before pursuing this career?
So first, what is my inspiration? So my inspiration is the people who does not have enough access to resources. So as a child, I was already aware of my privilege, and I also went to a public school. So I got exposed to people in different social classes. So with my upbringing, I always wanted to help people out, and that became my inspiration in pursuing STEM. So my heroine growing up was Dr. Fedal Mundo. So she is a Filipino, and she is a pediatrician who invented the bamboo incubator to help rural communities with no access to electricity. So as a child, I always wanted to be a doctor because her contribution shaped my perception of STEM, because she found innovative ways to help the people in need. So she's also one of the reasons that made me go into STEM. But before I knew about STEM as a field, I always wanted, as I said, I always wanted to be a doctor. That's why I went to advanced science school, which is design. So while I was at school, I really loved learning about technology, biology, life systems, and engineering. And that really solidified my path that I wanted to take, which is STEM. So for something that I wish I had done before pursuing this field, so I'm still a university student taking up agricultural and biosystems engineering. And I wish I knew how broad the STEM was, because I always thought that I'll just get put into a box like biology, engineering, or like technology, math. But then you can also integrate all of them into the faculty more. And as for STEM, I wish I paid more attention to my statistics classes since I wanted to go to research. And it's really a big component when you're doing research and you want to confirm your hypothesis. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, and I think that is a really good point. Like, there's a lot of like crossover between the different types of paths that you can go to. Like, you can do biology, you can do chemistry, but there's also biochem. So there's just so many different ways that you can go about, being a part of STEM. And so, Ms. Aurora, do you have something that you want to contribute to that?
Okay, so I was interested in computer science back in school when, so we used to have some computer classes from grade 1. However, those classes would just teach you some basic PowerPoint or like how to use MS Paint. So I used to enjoy that. So I thought that I'm interested in computers because I thought that is what computer science is all about. But as I grew up, the concepts started getting difficult and our teachers started introducing programming into the classes. And that is when I realized that I actually enjoy problem solving. So when I had to choose my subjects for university, I went to my computer science teacher and asked her like what is covered later and like what should I expect. And whatever she told me seemed quite interesting to me. And I thought that, okay, let's give it a try. So I went ahead with it. And I would say that my first heroine would be my computer science teacher only, because the one who introduced me to the world of computer science. And now I realized that I really enjoy this thing. So I really look at her. And something which I would have done earlier would be to expand my network when I was still in school and connect with people outside my school to know what they are doing. Because right now I was just limited to the people who were in my school, and I thought that I'm the best among them. However, when I came to university, I realized that people from different backgrounds have done much more in life and things which I had no clue about when I was in school. So that would be one thing which I would change.
That is a really great point. It's just making sure that you are always like learning and growing and learning from the people around you. That is a very great point. And then Dr. Burnell?
Sure. So one of my role models growing up was Marie Curie, who was responsible for multiple discoveries related to radiology and radioactivity in both physics and chemistry. She was actually the first woman to receive a Nobel laureate and the only woman to receive two in two separate fields. And I truly admire her for two very specific reasons. The first is her discoveries were directly related to developing X-ray technology, to radioablation, so many medical advances that I use every day in the clinic that save millions of lives. And then the second is that she made the absolute necessary decision to surround herself with people who support her. So in 1903, the Nobel Committee actually selected Dr. Curie's husband, Pierre Curie, for the discovery of radioactivity, which was actually a term that was coined by Marie Curie. And what was shocking to me was that her husband refused to accept the award unless it was co-awarded to both him and his wife. And ultimately, the Nobel Committee agreed to do so. So that became the first woman to win the Nobel laureate. And I think it lends itself to the idea that you must surround yourself with people who are willing to forego their own ego and hold you up and allow you to shine, which I think at the time was very novel. So I'd say that instead of describing something I wish I had done, I'll say that I'm grateful that I've been able to hopefully surround myself with similar people who have been supportive and allowed me to achieve some of the things that I've been able to achieve.
Yes, thank you so much for that story. That's so inspiring. As we're having like this conversation about, STEM, I want to give a bit of time actually if each of you want to go and describe a bit of your careers that might be valuable to the people here to get exposure to different types of STEM careers. So we'll start with Miss Aurora.
Okay, sure. So I'm still a student. I'm a third year student in Nanyang Technological University. However, I have done various internships in software engineering and data science field. So I understand that most of our participants are still in school. So you would not be very familiar with these terms. So in very vague terms, software engineering basically is developing technologies. These technologies can be websites, applications, or any form of product. And data science is a very different field, and it usually deals with using data and utilizing it to come to various decision points. So for example, if you have the data of the different users who use YouTube, you can make the recommendation system and improve it. So that is a very simple example which you would be using in your everyday lives. But if you go deep into data science, it is way more than that.
That is so cool. I love like the real world applications towards it. Dr. Bernal?
Sure. So my career started at the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center. It was my first job. I was shucking peanuts. So you got to start somewhere. We were genetically engineering the crops in Africa to be more nutritious so that farmers could have better micronutrient nutrition in their foods. And that inspired me to pursue a career or pursue education in science. So in university, I studied biological sciences with a focus on plant engineering. And I decided that it was important to simultaneously understand concepts related to business because I felt like that would be a combination that would assist me with any field that I wanted to go into. So I tacked on a finance major during my time at university. And then I moved abroad and developed a vaccine for Shigella, which is a gastrointestinal disease that causes dysentery. And that spurred my love for gastrointestinal disease and the massive burden that it has on individuals both in the United States and abroad. So I matriculated to the MD-PhD program at WashU in 2014. I completed 2 years of didactic training in medicine to learn kind of a foundation of knowledge. And then I started genoscopy to address some of the problems that I had been seeing in the hospital. Specifically, one individual was a woman who presented to the hospital with stage 4 colorectal cancer. And I thought to myself, you know, we live in an era where we can sequence the genome in a day. We can, provide custom therapies to individuals to attack cancer. We can harness the immune system to ablate cancer in individuals. You know, why can't we provide a non-invasive and accurate alternative to a colonoscopy, which was a technique developed in the 60s. So that was the foundation for genoscopy. And as I completed my PhD in 2019, I took a couple of years off to run the company. Currently, we are in our phase 3 clinical trial for that diagnostic, which is an accurate, non-invasive way to detect colorectal cancer. We have 3 patents. We have raised over $100 million in funding, and we have several grants to support those efforts. And now, true to form, I am back in school. So I'm finishing up my medical degree, the last 2 years of my training. And so I would say a commitment to lifelong learning is very important. Always be bettering yourself through education and not being worried about the end has been something that has been helpful throughout my career.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. That is so amazing. You've done so much. Thank you. And then Miss Jayra.
Hi, so I am a first-year undergraduate student of BS Agricultural and Biosystems Engineering. So it is a field that's integrating biology, chemistry, physics, and engineering to improve agricultural systems. So I did research on Arduino and biomedical sciences, and we made an Arduino-based ultrasonic sensory glove for the visually challenged. So last year, I also did research on the effects of bioaccumulation of iron and copper on biochemical parameters of algae, since we live near a lake system, which has like a lot of percentage of iron and copper because of the factories around it. And I mentioned before that I do hackathons. So we provided solutions for agricultural businesses and hospital emergency management, since there are pressing issues in the Philippines today, especially with COVID and lockdown. And this will help people in the communities.
Thank you. I love how each of you does something that kind of relates to reducing inequalities. And that will actually lead into my next question. However, I do want to, now that we're kind of hitting kind of the middle of the hour, if anyone in the participants wants to ask any questions, feel free to answer it or put it in the chat, and then we will get to your question soon, but I'll continue to pose these questions to the panelists. But feel free to ask any questions in the chat. Thank you. So our next question is, how can female scientists, I guess, acknowledge this intersectionality of many different issues related to like gender, race, religion, disability, etc. in their field, and what efforts have you taken to equalize all women? So I would start with Miss Jaira.
So first step to actually acknowledging anything is recognizing its existence. So we should recognize first the intersectionality in our field, because before we can take the proper action. So we all have different experiences and individuality, but in a field where we should work together, it is important that to foster a safe environment for people to be able to be themselves while doing the work that they do best. So we should also learn to listen and acknowledge these differences so that we can interact with each other with respect. So here at VTech, we share and open opportunities to all women, while also creating events for them to have the opportunity to find and talk with mentors, while we also teach them the skills that would help them advance in their careers and in their respective fields.
Yes, thank you so much for that answer. And Miss Aurora?
Hi. So I feel that when you have a diverse set of people in your team, they provide you with very different perspectives, which help you understand the problem from every case possible. So especially in my field, we usually design products which are going to be used by people all over the world. So if you have people from different genders, races, backgrounds, you would know the target audience better and you will be able to serve them better because your team has those people who represent those communities. So just to summarize, when you have people from different backgrounds, you need to focus on their skills and see how they can offer you a fresh pair of eyes to view the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much. And then Dr. Burnell?
Yeah, I think there's a constant recognition, just, everyone understands that diversity is important and talks about it a lot, but no one really discusses why. And I've thought about it, and I certainly agree with Dr. Aurora that diversity in thought and experience, it creates an improved way to understand and tackle problems that we face, whether it be building a product or just trying to figure out how to overcome obstacles that you're experiencing at a company or whatever it might be. Diversity in thought, diversity in experience creates the ability to improve the amount of solutions and the number of solutions that you can generate to address those problems. And I think this is exemplified by an experience I had when I was younger. I always thought, you grow up and whatever you do in your household unit, that's what you think happens. And I always thought that people, came home every day and had dinner together. And when I talked to other people, I realized that's not what every single family does. And in that moment, it's a very small thing, but it made me realize that my world experience, what I do on a day-to-day, is not representative of the entire country. It's not representative even of, my entire street. And so I think making sure that you're exposing yourself to a variety of different people, to a variety of different experiences, helps you build and create value more effectively.
Yes, thank you so much. And that, that's a really good point, is like learning to, surround yourself with a diverse range of people so that you yourself can start learning from them. And I think, you know, that probably will benefit like the work that you're doing and how you can be representative of the people that, you know, you're trying to help. And this is kind of a question that kind of occurred in our last conversation in a different open forum about the importance of men helping in equalizing this conversation on women in leadership positions. But I wanted to pose this question also to you all about how can men help this movement of allowing more women to be in STEM and supporting more women in STEM. So I will start with Dr. Burnell again. Yes.
Sure. I think one of the biggest things that I've encountered with men, I call it the "you should have asked" syndrome, where women take on responsibility, women do things, women see what needs to be done and then act on it. And women tend to be kind of silent about being resentful for taking on those responsibilities. Whereas men respond to that by saying, well, you should have asked. And I think that if men kind of put themselves in a woman's shoes and say, you know, look at this, look at the environment, look at the situation, try to understand what a woman is taking on and be proactive about helping them instead of waiting to be asked to help. I think that's one of the best ways that men can be supportive either of their significant other or their coworker or their inferiors or their superiors. You know, I think just in general, being proactive about helping.
Thank you so much. I really love that answer. And then Miss Aurora.
I completely agree with Dr. Burnell, and actually I was thinking about the same thing. So just to add on, apart from being proactive, I would say that men get also actively include women in things which they do just for men, just for women. I think be more wholesome if everyone would be a part of every activity.
Thank you. Sorry, I had a little bit of trouble hearing the end of what you said. I don't know if that's me, but if you want to please repeat that part.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, so sorry.
Yeah.
So I was just saying that it would be more wholesome if men, if both men and women could be equal partakers of every activity. Most importantly, I would say in all the household activities, raising children. So I feel that it would be involved.
Miss Aurora?
Are you still having trouble? Are you still having
Yes.
trouble with my audio?
It goes a little bit in and out, but we can come back to you. Yeah, we'll come back to you.
Sure. I'll try to reconnect.
Thank you so much. And then Miss Jaira?
So the men can help our movement in STEM by being allies and educating their fellow men. So another thing is going back to when someone interrupted you speaking. Okay, this is a personal experience, but then there's one time in a hackathon where like a man interrupted me speaking because he wanted to ask a question even though I was presenting. But then this other person, like also a man on the call, said like, oh, you were speaking, and acknowledged me actually speaking. So that's actually a great help and that for us to move forward in this movement. So being acknowledged.
Thank you so much for that answer. And then I see in the chat that Rosemary has put a question, so I'll pose it to you all. So have you noticed any changes in the culture of STEM since you joined the community? I think that is a wonderful question. Miss Jayra, do you want to answer?
So actually, I think like here in the Philippines, we have more women now, and the institutions and companies are actively being open to more women entering their companies or institution. Like I always have meetings with women in technology groups inside institutions or companies or even clubs in school. So there's really a great difference between before and now. Because before we don't have those groups, and we also have like fewer women in the field. So now there are groups of women working together to advance here in the STEM field.
I think that's so wonderful that more groups are popping up. And then Dr. Burnell.
Yeah, I agree with that. One example that came to mind is when I was growing up, every woman has an OB-GYN. And I remember trying to find one that was a woman, and it was challenging. There's fewer. And most recently, I did a clinical clerkship at Barnes Jewish Hospital, and we had a woman who was going into labor, and it wasn't going well. And so there's a button on the wall to call the code, and they hit the button, and I just remember 30 women coming into the room, OB-GYNs, peds, surgeons, people who are ready to provide airway. And I'm the med student, right? I don't do anything, but I was just kind of shocked to see so many women physicians that came to be the first responder for this individual who was suffering. And I thought that was inspirational to see so many women being successful. And I think that creates an environment that promotes more women to being successful and being excellent physicians.
Mm-hmm. I love knowing that, that number of people in these fields on both ends in the Philippines and the US have expanded, and that now more women can kind of help other women. And so I think that's wonderful. And then Rosemary has another question that says, are there any aspects of the sexist culture that you have just embraced or that you have accepted won't change? And one other thing I want to kind of add on to her questions, which have been very great, is just the idea of like, how do you want it to change? Like we're talking about how has it changed, or what things that you have kind of embraced or things that you don't see changing, but how from there do you want it to continue to advance? So we'll start with Dr. Burnell.
So the answer is no, you don't accept it. I think that it's better received to acknowledge the progress that has been made and continue to applaud those efforts, but ensure that you are not being complacent or accepting of the inevitable injustice that afflicts women and minorities. An example is we were hiring for a quality assurance position, and we had two exceptional candidates, one who I thought was better than the other. But at the table of the discussion, someone said, well, in her interview, she brought up that she just had a child and she's concerned about the risk of joining a startup company. And I think that might be a red flag. And I said, no, I don't think that's a red flag. I think that is somebody who is careful, is calculated, is considerate, is mindful of the needs of their family. It should not be viewed as a negative, but in my mind should be viewed as a positive, as somebody who is going to be calculated and concerned and conservative, especially for a position of quality position where risk aversion is important. So, I mean, again, trying to present things in a way that are positive, acknowledging that there is something that needs to be changed, and, providing a rationale that is justifiable to support the decisions you're making and why you don't think that that's correct is important, but never being complacent or accepting of things that you believe are unfair.
Yeah, that's a really great point, and that's kind of how we achieve change in these systems, is never being like accepting of how it is and just continuing on from where we are and trying to get better each day. So Ms. Jera, do you have something you want to add on? I'm loving the questions in the chat, by the way. We will get to them.
Okay, so I personally don't accept it, since I also speak out a lot about the sexist culture, because it's so rampant, especially in STEM. And especially if you're like one of the younger people in an institution and you're in STEM, or like you're in a group. So I also look out for other women so that they're treated equally, especially in school competitions and other opportunities, because there is a tendency to actually just pick out the men in the group. For example, you're in a training pool. So there are some professors or trainers that just pick out the men and they believe that they will do the best in those competitions. But that's usually not the case. So I just look out and just encourage that they will have like an equal playing ground for everyone.
Thank you so much. And then Miss Aurora, were you able to hear my last question, or do you want me to repeat it again?
I was able to hear it. Is my audio clear now?
Yes, yes, yes. Feel free to respond.
Okay, so in my experience, I have observed like some of my seniors got placed in a very prestigious company this year, and both of them were females, and they were the only students from that cohort to get placed in that company. So the others started spreading this word that they got that job because that particular company is focusing on diversity and they are only hiring females and they don't have much credibility or merit, and it's just because of their gender that they got this job. So that is something which like made me furious, and I tried to argue with people at first, but then I realized, with how many people will I try to defend them? Like this, just because some people are talking about them this way is not affecting their career, but it might affect their mental health in some way. And after some time, I stopped talking about it because I thought that I will never be able to control what other people say or what other people think. So the best we can do is to keep ourselves positive and know that we are worth of what we are achieving.
Yes, thank you. And that is a really great point of like mental health, the importance of taking time to take care of yourself as you're in this work. There are so many great questions in the chat. I will just move on to Sarah. They put that sometimes there's some particular social behavior or of emphasis on what career a girl or a boy should take. How do you deal with these? Miss Aurora, do you want to answer this? And we'll have, for the sake of time, we'll have one person answer each question. So I'll just, Miss Aurora, you can answer this question.
Okay, sure. So I would say that I know that there does exist some emphasis, but my suggestion would be that to go against those people who are suggesting that you should not do this or that. And if someone tells you that this is too difficult for you or this is too complicated for a girl, then you should try to experience it firsthand, try to explore what this particular subject is or what this particular stream is before you just agree with their decision and change your entire course of study. So always believe yourself and your experiences over any other person's advice.
Yes, thank you so much. And then Dr. Burnell, Alicia asks from your perspective, why do you think we need more women in STEM?
So I think that it shouldn't be viewed as why do we need more women in STEM or more women on the Supreme Court justice or more women on whatever. I think that when you look at any position or any field, the goal should be representative of the United States Census population, because that dictates if there is equality in the system in terms of choosing women, access, opportunity, proper education, things like that. So the way I think about it is, if you look at the total number of general surgeons in the United States and 90% of them are male, what that says to me is that we are not providing an infrastructure that allows for adequate representation or adequate acceptance of women into those programs. And so when I think about it like that, what it says to me is that there are components of the system that are not working properly to allow for equal opportunity. And so that's why it's important to use that metric of diversity as a measure of opportunity and equality.
Yes, thank you. And that's a really good point. And I think this leads wonderfully into Aditi's, I hope Aditi, I'm pronouncing that correctly, but Ms. Jaira, so they ask, like, do you think girls who are privileged enough to be free to choose their career and are encouraged to do whatever they want would still majorly choose non-STEM careers? Or if all girls had that privilege, that is when we would see more women in STEM careers, which I think is an interesting question. Like the idea of, is your access to these kind of careers what is kind of allowing you to get into them, or if generally everyone had them, would we see more people? So yes, if you want to answer that question.
Okay, so I think it's not a matter of privilege, but it's a matter of the opportunities that are in the STEM field for these girls. So, since we don't really see enough representation or enough quote unquote space for them in the field. But okay, for discussion, I think that if all girls have that privilege, we'll have more women in STEM fields because they are free to explore and they can actually pick a career that they want. And if they want STEM, then they can go to STEM. So yeah, but we should also consider the barriers that I said before, such as the space and then not having enough opportunities.
Thank you. And then of Miss Aurora, I will ask Sarah's question. So how can I, as a senior in high school, encourage younger female students in my school to take part in STEM? I think this is very appropriate for you since you helped mentor a lot of girls. So if you would like to answer that question.
Sure. So in my experience, I have noticed that schoolgirls are actually quite interested in exploring a career in STEM, but maybe that is because I just interacted with those who were interested. But if you want to go ahead and inspire more people, my suggestion would be to share what fascinates you, what inspires you, and why you are interested in this field. And I feel that should be a good starting point for others to look further and explore this field. And you can help them guide their way, like where can they get started and what are the next steps. And also, most of the students would be confused when they are in school. So you can talk to them about their interests and ensure that you don't force the STEM, don't force them into STEM if they are not interested.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up that point. And then Alicia, for now, unless, for now we'll move on to Jaideep's question. but if there's time, we'll go back to yours since you already asked a question. So he puts in the chat that, gonna just put in a very quick question here. Recently read a very misogynistic thread on social media by a well-revered male scientist in my field of computational chemistry. Do you think the mindset change has to start from transforming mindsets of male scientists as well? How can male PIs of research groups be part in promoting this cause? And I'll pose this question to Dr. Burnell.
Yeah, that's a fun one. So what I will say is that it is a slow process, but what we end up seeing is this kind of misogyny is negatively self-selected. So women are unbelievable scientists, women are unbelievably intelligent. When we as women go to choose our PI, we do not choose that PI, right? We choose a PI that is supportive. We choose a PI that is understanding of our needs, of what we need to do to get the work done. So what I have seen is, again, it's slow, it's evolution, but the PIs that are supportive, the PIs that are helpful, those that do not have these misogynistic viewpoints are those that get the best scientists. Those that end up with the best research, those that get the grant funding to support their research, those that subsequently see, a longevity of their laboratory. And so kind of in this day and age where that is a choice for women, where we get to choose who we want to work with for our PhDs and for our jobs, those individuals are selected against, and it's evolutionarily disadvantageous for them to have those viewpoints. So it takes time, but it's selected against, and I think that that's important.
Okay, thank you. And I know Rosemary was clarifying what a PI is, and thank you, Mr. Newman, for answering. It is a principal investigator. And so this kind of leads us to sort of the end, the culmination of this forum. If any of you want to give a closing remark and give maybe some word of advice to the people here, we will start with Ms. Jaira.
So my advice to the people here is don't be afraid to explore and ask questions, because it doesn't matter what other people think of you. What matters is what you think of you. And feel free to feed that hunger for truth and for knowledge. And always remember that you can do anything when you put your mind and hard work to it. So, yes.
Thank you so much. And then Ms. Aurora.
My piece of advice would be to surround yourself with people who support you, who are encouraging, and who push you forward even when you are not doing great.
Thank you so much. And then finally, Dr. Burnell.
Yeah, I think it's important to have the mentality that success is added or multiplied, not subtracted or divided, and that success is not a zero-sum game. So if your peer achieves success, it does not detract from your personal achievements. And if you allow that mentality to happen, it creates a very toxic and difficult work environment. So it's natural to feel anxiety, if somebody is achieving something, but I encourage you to rather turn it around and, be proud of other women who are doing amazing things, support them, hold them up, shine a light on them, and then they will do the same for you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all three of you for being on this open forum. It was very, very inspiring. All of your responses were very informative. And I personally learned a lot from listening to each of you. And yes, we need to take a picture. So we invite everyone to put on their cameras. And then I believe Rita is taking the picture, or is it Rosemary?
I will be taking the picture.
Okay, yes. So everyone, please put on your cameras if you feel comfortable. and we will be taking a picture.
I slowly see the cameras starting to turn on, so I'm gonna give it a couple seconds, make sure everybody's internet catches up. I know sometimes this runs on a lag. Yep. Okay. Last couple seconds, last opportunity. Right, so we're good. Right, so 1, 2, 3. And then just one last one, just in case, because you never quite know with this kind of stuff. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you so much.